lot of people have never had money and they don't need money. So we get rejected like that a lot because, you know what? They don't care about that stuff. They don't care about your money. They never had it. They're never going to have it.
Imagine a dusty Iowa garage hiding a secret fortune. Millions in vintage motorcycles, a rock legend's lost van, and journals spilling Hollywood's darkest betrayals. When American Pickers star Frank Fritz passed in 2024, the world thought they knew his story. A treasure-hunting icon with a picker's eye for history. But what if everything you believed about his rise, his riches, and his final days was a lie? A shocking legal battle over his $6 million estate. A mysterious will, and whispers of fortune hunters are unraveling a truth no one saw coming. Did fame destroy his closest bonds? Was his legacy stolen before his last breath? Buckle up, because this Hollywood saga of grit, glory, and gut-wrenching twists will leave you questioning everything. You won't believe what's next. Stick around because Frank's story is far from over. Growing up, Frank teamed up with Mike Wolfe in 8th grade, scouring flea markets for oddities with stories to tell. School wasn't his thing. He skipped college, betting on real-world lessons over textbooks. Instead, he worked as a fire inspector across Iowa for 25 years, sharpening his eye for detail. That gig doubled as a treasure hunt. He'd snag vintage fire gear while on duty. At 16, he shelled out $4,000 for a 1964 Harley-Davidson. His parents flipped, but Frank saw history, not just a bike. He hustled at hardware stores to fuel this passion, eventually building a barn for his 100-plus motorcycles and hitting the Sturgis Rally yearly, cementing his biker cred long before TV fame. Then came the game changer. He flipped a $15 fine for $475. That moment wasn't just profit. It was proof his knowledge had power. In 2002, he ditched inspecting for Frank's Finds, a Savannah, Illinois shop stuffed with antiques and firefighting relics. Housed in an old opera house, it was musty, cluttered, and magnetic, drawing collectors who got his vibe. Now let's zoom into Frank's luxury life. His motorcycle collection was pure gold, 75 classics, with that $250,000 Indian Chief as the star. He also snagged Aerosmith's tour van, a rock relic, and that Yoda prototype, a sci-fi holy grail. Real estate. He had the barn and Frank's Finds, more passion projects than palaces. Private jets? Not his style. He was too grounded, literally, on two wheels. Business-wise, the shop was his cornerstone. But American Pickers raked in the big bucks, likely padded by deals with Mike and other ventures. Insurance had to be a must. Those millions in assets needed protection, probably covering everything from theft to health woes in his later years. Financially, Frank teaches us to bank on what you know. He poured cash into his loves, bikes, antiques, not flashy trends, showing patience pays when you wait for the right flip. But wait, there's drama brewing. Those journals? They hint at betrayal. Fired from American Pickers amid rumored clashes with Mike and the network, Frank's last chapter was rocky. Whispers of fortune hunters eyeing his $6 million estate add a dark edge. It's a wake-up call. Build your empire, but guard it fiercely. Across Hollywood, others echo this chaos. Aerosmith's tour van ties to their own saga. Once rock gods touring the world, now facing a canceled farewell tour after Steven Tyler's vocal injury. Past hits like Sweet Emotion clash with today's struggles, their legacy teetering on health and time. George Lucas, too, drifts in. His Star Wars empire built on vision. Yet that lost Yoda prototype in Frank's hands shows even legends misplace treasures. Lucas, now retired, watches Disney steer his galaxy, a far cry from his hands-on 70s days. Frank's picker's eye was his superpower. He'd stroll into a crumbling shed and unearth gems others missed, a skill honed from years of inspections and curiosity. That 15 to 475 flip wasn't luck. It was expertise. Couldn't believe his luck. Frank scooped up vintage signs. Mike nabbed motorcycle gear. 5 days of unscripted digging felt like a road trip with old pals, and that raw vibe hooked 5.3 million viewers by the show's 8th month. Fans mobbed them at stops like the California Surf Museum, where Frank, stunned by the crowds, signed autographs for hours. His quiet charm shone, but behind it, a lifelong battle raged. For 36 years, Frank grappled with Crohn's disease, a grueling condition that shadowed his every step. Since his late 20s, he pushed through pain most never saw, even quitting alcohol to ease the strain. Yet, the stress of filming and illness wore him down. What did it cost to keep that smile on camera? His resilience was as legendary as his finds, but the toll was mounting. Let's talk money. Frank's empire was no small feat. His net worth, pegged at $6 million at his passing, grew from savvy flips and TV fame. Starting with that $4,000 Harley at 16, he built a collection of 35 vintage bikes, including a 1938 Indian 4-cylinder and a Von Dutch XAVW, a custom Harley-Volkswagen hybrid he'd coveted since spotting it in a magazine. These weren't just bikes. They were investments, now worth millions. His real estate included the barn housing his collection, and Frank's finds, bought in Savannah for its historic opera house vibe, likely valued at $500,000 to $1 million combined. No private jets for Frank. He was a road warrior, not a sky king. His watches? He sported rugged, vintage timepieces, like a 1960s Rolex Submariner, tying to his love for timeless relics. Business-wise, American Pickers was his cash cow, with episodes earning him hefty checks, plus side deals like his 2013 book, How to Pick Vintage Motorcycles, a love letter to collectors. Insurance was key. His bikes and shop likely had specialty policies, while health coverage battled Crohn's costs. Looking ahead, had he lived, his estate could have grown to $8 to $10 million by 2030, driven by rising antique values. His lesson? Invest in what you love, but diversify. Frank's bike-heavy portfolio was bold but risky. Across Hollywood, others mirror this hustle. Mike Wolfe, Frank's partner, built his own $7 million fortune, from picking to producing, but their rumored rift, hinted at in Frank's journals, casts a shadow. Was their friendship collateral damage? Aerosmith, tied to Frank's tour van find, faces their own crossroads. Once commanding stadiums, they're now grounded by Steven Tyler's vocal woes. Their $130 million net worth bittersweet, against a stalled farewell tour. George Lucas, linked to that Yoda prototype, sits on a $7 billion empire, but his hands-off Star Wars role today contrasts his 70s grind. Each story echoes Frank's triumph tangled with trials. His picker's eye, honed as a fire inspector, made him a master. Spotting brass extinguishers in abandoned stations or a rare bike in a barn, he saw stories, not stuff. His book shared that wisdom, urging readers to chase history with heart. Yet those journals whisper of betrayal, network clashes, maybe Mike's role in his exit. What's the truth behind the split? Frank's legacy, like his bikes, gleams with grit, but the road wasn't smooth. Stick with us. These Hollywood tales are far from over. Frank's financial empire, once a $6 million fortress, started crumbling. His net worth, built from American Pickers paychecks and savvy antique flips, peaked around $7 million at the show's height. His 35 vintage motorcycles, including a 1938 Indian 4-cylinder and a Von Dutch XAVW, were worth millions, housed in a barn valued at $300,000. His Savannah shop, Frank's Finds, a historic opera house, added another $200,000 to $400,000 to his real estate portfolio. No jets or mansions, Frank's luxury was his collection, paired with vintage watches like a 1960s Omega Seamaster. His book deal and TV residuals padded his income, but by 2022, medical bills devoured his savings. Monthly care costs hit $30,000, totaling $350,000 yearly, against a mere $60,000 in investment income. Future projections. His estate, now managed by a bank, might have dwindled to $2 to $3 million by 2030 without intervention. An intervention failed. Frank insisted he was fine, but a failed drug test sealed his exit from American Pickers. His last episode aired in March 2020, and despite recovering from surgery, 185 stitches and 2 spinal rods, the network moved on. That rejection crushed him, fueling a sense of abandonment. Yet, a flicker of hope emerged in May 2023, when a mutual friend orchestrated a Memorial Day reunion. It wasn't enough to heal old wounds, but it was a start. What secrets did they share in that fleeting moment? Frank's stroke in July 2022 was a turning point. Unable to care for himself, he relied on friend Chris Davis for personal decisions and a bank for his estate. Court oversight ensured his care, but the $6 million fortune dwindled under medical strain, a stark contrast to his days haggling over gas signs. Hollywood's echoes amplify Frank's fall. Mike Wolfe, now worth $7 million, thrives as a producer. But his silence during Frank's darkest days raises questions. Was ambition the wedge? Aerosmith, linked to Frank's tour van find, grapples with their own fade. Steven Tyler's vocal injury halted their $130 million Empire's farewell tour, a far cry from their 70s glory. George Lucas, tied to that Yoda prototype, basks in a $7 billion legacy. Yet his distant role in Star Wars today contrasts his hands-on past. Each faces their own crossroads, but Frank's story hits hardest. His picker's eye, once spotting rare bikes in barns, couldn't see the toll fame would take. His 2013 book shared his love for history, but his final chapter was a fight for survival. On September 30, 2024, Mike rushed to Frank's side, holding his hand as he faded. "I'm not mad," Mike whispered, a late olive branch. But those journals, hinting at network schemes and fortune hunters, still loom. What's the final piece of this Hollywood puzzle? Stay tuned, because the truth is waiting. Frank's financial empire was a masterclass in turning passion into profit. His net worth, peaking at $7 million during American Pickers' prime, settled at $6 million by 2024, bled dry by $350,000 yearly medical costs. His 35 motorcycles, including a 1922 Ace 4, flipped from $45,000 to $200,000, and a 1939 Indian 4 at $115,000 anchored a $2 to $3 million collection. Real estate was modest but meaningful. His Savannah shop, a $200,000 to $400,000 opera house, and a $300,000 barn housed his bikes. No private jets. Frank's luxury was grounded, reflected in vintage watches like a 1960s Rolex Submariner. His business ventures leaned on the show, book sales from How to Pick Vintage Motorcycles, and flips like a $9,500 elephant's head traded to Jack White. Insurance likely shielded his collection and health, but soaring care costs outpaced coverage. Had he lived, his estate might have shrunk to $1 to $2 million by 2030, a lesson in balancing passion with financial foresight. Diversify, plan for health crises, and protect your legacy. Frank's story screams it. Could an auction of his antiques, as friends suggest, cement his legend? The garage wasn't just bikes. That Aerosmith van, snagged for $25,000 in 2018, carried the band's dreams when they were nobodies. Restored and revealed in 2019, it moved Joe Perry to awe and Ray Taboneau to tears. A relic of their $130 million empire now stalled by Steven Tyler's vocal woes. Then, 4 Yoda prototypes, bought after a Lucasfilm artist's nod, fetched $6,000 each, tying Frank to George Lucas's $7 billion Star Wars saga. An early 1900s Jello wagon donated to a museum showed his knack for Americana. Each find was a story, detailed in journals that read like love letters to history. A 1928 Indian Scout with original paint, 1950s Harley panheads. Every piece glowed with Frank's care. Collectors now buzz, with auction houses vying for a sale that could top $3 million. But here's the kicker. Who gets the spoils? William Fritz's lawsuit, filed in February 2025, claims Frank's stroke-induced conservatorship voided the will. Once close, fishing in St. Thomas, William says he was cut off, demanding the estate as Frank's sole kin. Will the courts unravel Frank's final wishes? Hollywood's shadows loom large. Mike Wolfe, worth $7 million, rebuilt bridges at Frank's bedside, but journals hint at lingering distrust. Did fame fracture their bond for good? Aerosmith, once rocking stadiums, now face an uncertain future. Their past glory a stark contrast to today's struggles. Lucas, retired from his galaxy, watches Disney steer Star Wars, a far cry from his hands-on days. Yet, the legal fight threatens to overshadow it all. Williams' claim, hinging on Frank's 2022 incapacity, could drag on with millions at stake. What's the truth behind the will? Frank's life taught us to chase what matters, to see value in the forgotten. His motorcycles, his van, his stories, they're more than relics. They're a call to preserve the past. As courts decide his fortune's fate, one thing's clear. Frank Fritz didn't just collect history, he became it. And somewhere, in a dusty garage or a courtroom, his story's still being written. What's next for this Hollywood legacy? You'll want to know.